What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I know some of you have been waiting for the next part of Pokemon Insurgence, but we're going to hold off on that for a minute. You know, I figured when I first started this channel, I had so many ideas on, unique and creative things that other YouTubers just weren't doing, and in the end I just was doing battles and LPs like everybody else. So I'm going to start doing some of the more interesting, unique content now, and we're gonna do team rating. I don't know if anybody else has done this on YouTube, but and we're not even gonna do OU teams. My specialty is under U, so we're gonna be looking at some UU teams. I feel like the or Ask Other Teams forum is not. It's a forum that doesn't really get any attention or as much attention as the OU forum. It's really disproportionate. So I really wanted to take the time and go through a team in this forum, and I guess this is also kind of a how to rate kind of video. I might also go more in depth on that in another video, but basically the key to rating teams is to find out the main goal of the team and then optimize the team around that. For example, if they're using an unviable Pokemon that doesn't help the purpose of the team, replace it for something that does help the team. Like, you don't want to replace too many Pokemon because at that point it's not really their team. Like here, if I could replace one Pokemon, like this is one of those teams that I could see myself replacing quite a few Pokemon, like at least one or two. Like for example, is that Galvantula? Galvantula is not very good in underused. It's just he doesn't need Galvantula. So obviously the title of his team can reveal a lot. You know, Mega Absol. So the one Pokemon you don't want to replace is Mega Absol. So the purpose of his team is to facilitate a Mega Absol sweep. So like he doesn't need sticky web support because Absol is already pretty fast for its tier. 115 is very fast in UU. Actually, this probably isn't a good team to rate. It's because of all the tier changes that completely changes the team, and in all honesty, this might not be the greatest time to do this kind of video just because UU changed so drastically from the recent tier changes. But I guess I'm gonna... Oh, it's another Mega Absol team, what do you know? But I'm gonna go off the assumption that at least Terrakion will go BL. So, okay, this one... Okay, Weezing is not the worst Pokemon here. It is a fighting type resistance, but... Okay, he's got Empoleon, Stealth Rock, Mienshao... Florges. Okay, see, okay, this Donphan is completely unviable, so we're not going to use that. I was going to suggest a Fairy type on the other team, but the problem with having Fairy types in UU is that all of them are very passive. You don't have like a Sylveon. I really want Sylveon to drop down to UU already. That would be fantastic. But stuff like Florges and Aromatisse are just very passive, and they don't really provide momentum for offense. So I was actually going to suggest stuff like, I was going to suggest Slurpuff. Now, Slurpuff seems like a very strange option, but I've used it before to some relative success. But basically what Slurpuff punishes some of Absol's biggest checks, being like Scarf Hydreigon, Machamp, Scarf Mienshao. Sorry, so I have to clear up my throat. Mienshao, stuff like... And especially now because Lucario is starting to see a decline in usage. And also, like, Entei is, like, Entei just kind of passed its peak in viability, and it's starting to wane down a little bit. So, Belly Drum Slurpuff is a pretty good partner to Mega Absol. Both of those are very underrated options in UU. And then from there, we have to start supporting them with, Empoleon's a pretty decent option for Stealth Rock control and all of that, but I really do feel like he needs a better answer for, Entei, because really... Looking at his team, Entei comes in, something dies, so, And another reason why Slurpuff is so good with Absol, especially the Belly Drum version, is that they kind of break down each other's walls. If, like, having Absol on your team, it allows you to set up kind of early with Slurpuff, maybe mid-game, you go for a Belly Drum opportunity against Choice Locked Hydreigon. And even if you don't sweep through the entire team, it's more than likely that you've punched enough holes into your opponent's physical wall that Swords Dance, Absol can just come in right after it and clean up, you know? And vice versa. You can set up your Absol early, and then you don't have to worry about not sweeping their entire team in one shot because you have the Slurpuff in the back. And oh, this one has Fire Blast. I'm gonna go ahead and switch that to Swords Dance. And Knockoff is legal with Play Rough now as of Aura, so Play Rough is definitely the superior option here over Superpower. Like, you're not going to be beating stuff like Mega Aggron anyway. And speaking of Mega Aggron comes our next Pokemon on this team. So I feel like Weezing and Empoleon can definitely be scratched for a Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen basically does both of their jobs at once. Being like a bulky poison type to take care of fairies and fighting types, and also setting up Stealth Rocks like Empoleon. Mineshadow is not too bad on this team, although I would much rather have a Scarf set for this kind of team, because like I feel like Mega Absol is very catered to very heavy beatdown physical offense. So if you've got Absol set up, that'll punch holes into the team. Slurpuff sets up, punches holes, and then Mienshao just comes in and cleans up. If he wants to keep Empoleon, he could also, like, I don't see the need to keep Empoleon just because you're already stacking a ground weakness with, if you choose to go with Nidoqueen, which is arguably the more viable option here for Stealth Rock, defensive Stealth Rock support that can still keep up offensive pressure, and it can also punch holes into a lot of physical walls that can really cause Absol some trouble. Like it can take a hit from Mega Aggron pretty well, which is like the main thing that's walling the Slurpuff Absol core. Can hit it with a flamethrower or earth power. Yeah, I really should be writing this down. Like in the end, it's gonna be some really long paragraph, but that's basically how you have to evaluate teams, is what he's trying to base the team around. It's a lot easier in 6th gen just because generally the Mega Pokemon on their team is what the team is centered around, and you have to basically optimize the team to make the goal of the team easier, which obviously here it's like a Mega Absol sweep. And if you're going to change any Pokemon, make sure that they at least have like a similar role, but you basically have to make your case as to why this Pokemon is better than the one on their team. So Slurpuff is better on his team than Florges because Slurpuff has the same typing that offers the same defensive synergy, but at the same time it offers that offensive presence and breaks down opposing physical walls so that Absol can later come in and clean up. Maybe some kind of slow U-turn or a Volt Switcher, because a lot of his team, like Slurpuff isn't particularly bulky, Absol's not particularly bulky. Man, something like Raikou would have been really cool for this team, but they took that away from us too. If you can't really come up with a specific Pokemon that for the role you're trying to fill, the strategy decks here is a very useful utility available to you. Team options right here, and hopefully that'll give you a few ideas. Another tool I encourage you all to do if you want to rate teams is take a look at the viability rankings from time to time. So if you say, you know, I want to, oh, whoops, this is not the right thread. This is for XY, but if you want to say, you know, oh, you know, I've come up with this Pokemon to make this team better, you know, have an idea of where it is in the metagame right now. Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better than before? You know, kind of gauge how viable it actually is, so you can, and also because a lot of the times things aren't viable because they're simply outclassed. So if you say, oh, you know, Weezing would be really good for this team, but then you look back and see it's not really that high, but then you see Nidoqueen and say, oh, that's probably why, you know. Poor Suicune at S rank by itself. So right now I'm looking for, you know what, Crobat would be pretty decent for this team actually. If he doesn't want to use Nidoqueen, but Crobat doesn't really help with like the physical wall problem. Another Pokemon I was looking at here was Swampert. I mean, it's not standard, but I mean, I guess it works for his team. It can set up hazards. It threatens Mega Aggron effectively. It threatens Nidoqueen. And once again, it's something else that lures in Hydreigon, which Slurpuff can set up on. So that's really, really nice. He needs to check the Suicune though. Maybe he can try Superior. I mean, let's look at his initial team. So you got Absol, Weezing. You want to try your best to minimize the number of Pokemon you replace, but if it's obvious that the player still has some room to grow, at least suggest similar Pokemon. Like, it's not like I'm saying, you know, replace Florges with Entei, you know? It's Florges for Slurpuff. Or replace Empoleon for Machamp. No, it's Empoleon to Suicune. And then Weezing and Donphan in general are just not the best Pokemon, especially the sets he's running. So it's pretty safe to replace those Pokemon. And also maybe point out like a set optimization, like Swords Dance over Fire Blast, and then over here, Scarf over Life Orb. Because, I mean, pretty much the entire team is catered to wall breaking, so I don't know if you really need the Life Orb. And you could probably put Reckless over Regenerator and it'll still be doing the same amount of damage. Alright, so I'm typing up my rates, and yeah, using bold is a pretty decent choice over your main points, just so that your paragraph is easier to read, and like after you've gone on for a little bit, you know, here, space. You know, make some have a constructive attitude when you're rating, you know, make concessions to me, you know, I like your choice of Florges in terms of type synergy, but I think Florges is passive, so I suggest Belly Drum Slurpuff, not Azumarill, sorry, and then explain to him why BD Slurpuff is good with his team. And you know, SD over Fire Blast, and then Reckless Scarf Shout over Life Orb Mienshao. I've never had a lot of success with Life Orb Mienshao, to be quite honest, so we're just gonna keep typing up this rate. What did I say before? Oh yeah, Swampert. So I've got the next paragraph in my rate, and you know, I explain why. Swampert's more of like a trickier one. I'm just not really feeling Empoleon on his team. It doesn't have the same kind of offensive pressure that Swampert does. And like I said, dragons aren't really an issue because Slurpuff punishes those. The one dragon that beats Slurpuff, you know, Dragalu's not an issue because Swampert just kills it with Earthquake. So then we go to the problem with Weezing. Now, if you look at the viability rankings, Weezing is like it's B-. That's not really the greatest thing, and you know, I'm not saying that just because something is bad on the viability rankings that you shouldn't necessarily use it. Like Magneton is B- and I used it, but I just don't feel like like you have to justify a reason for putting Weezing on the team. Like okay, I feel like Weezing complements Absol very well. It covers all of its weaknesses, but Weezing is just kind of a momentum sucker. I get his logic where he's getting at, you know, you need a fighting resist, but I think I have a better option for what he's looking for, and his name is Crobat. You know, Mega Aggron is no longer an issue because Swampert is basically a free switch into that thing. You know, Mienshao can really weaken it for Absol and Slurpuff to take advantage of, so I feel like Crobat's a really nice fit to his team. It's not as bulky as Weezing, but it has reliable recovery. If he really wants that defog support, he can get it with Crobat. It can preserve momentum with U-turn, you know, making a really cool U-turn core with Mienshao, and it can provide the offensive pressure with Braver, just more physical offensive pressure to really put the pressure on bulky offense teams. I'll just unpause when I get the next paragraph typed up. Alright, so I've written more stuff, and I also pointed out that Entei is a really huge threat to his team if he keeps Empoleon like yeah, I mean, like, Entei basically gets a kill every time it switches into this team. Or it gets a burn off against Weezing or Donphan, so they're not really as much of a threat. So, Swampert basically stops that while providing the same support that Empoleon did. And, you know, having the offense, it can still get burned, but you can also just use Scald. And then, yeah, Crobat over Weezing is definitely better for this team. It's also very fast. And it's pretty bulky too. You know, it checks the fighting types pretty well. Because, you know, like, Slurpuff's not the bulkiest Pokemon, so for stuff like Banded Machamp, for instance, or like Life Orb Mienshao, you don't want to keep Slurpuff in on that. That's where Crobat comes in handy. And then finally, what was the last thing? Oh yeah, he has nothing for Crocoon. Like, Crocoon just 6-0s his team. Especially because, like, on his original pace spin thing, or not pace spin, on his original post, he doesn't have Swords Dance on Absol, so Crocoon definitely just 6-0s his team. So, I'll have that written up. Yeah, so I pointed out in the post that, you know, Crocoon 6-0s you, and Donphan is terrible for this kind of team, especially that, I don't really understand that set, but, yeah, this is where something like Raikou could have really helped him. Yeah, like a Specs Raikou could have really come in handy here, because like Like, I'm gonna suggest Superior, but I'm honestly not the biggest fan of Superior. It doesn't have the immediate power of something like Specs Raikou to really smack Suicune, and also like Grass just has a lot of resistances. It's not helping the Mega Aggron matchup at all, or the I guess it helps with Crocodile and stuff like that. But like right now, that really seems to be his only option if he wants some kind of special attacking presence on his team that can beat Suicune. Like, I guess there's Shaman, but Shaman's not looking that great right now either. So, okay, I'll make that suggestion to him. Alright, so I got that paragraph finished, basically explaining why Superior has good synergy with this team, and also, like, I know how I said earlier, like, you don't want to, like, suggest a completely unrelated Pokemon to replace the original one, but the fact is Donphan it's just a wasted slot basically where the role of a special attacker is needed. So I guess that's an exception if they're just using something completely unviable or something that just wastes a team slot on their team. And it's also good to have this nice little like too long didn't read section, just summing up the main points of your rates. And like I definitely don't want to say this is like the ideal format for a raid. Like, I changed a lot of Pokemon on his team, and that's mostly just because his team is I don't want to say bad, but he has room to grow as a UU player, so that's why I had to make so many changes. So now, from before we had a really just kind of mediocre, inefficient team with an Absol slapped onto it, like really just almost looked kind of like a semi-stall kind of thing. You had the Donphan, Florges, I guess Donphan's not really a stall Pokemon, he had Empoleon, Weezing, and then he just had a random Absol on there. So we go from that to an offensive team that's actually threatening, actually like viable. Hyper Offense as it stands is not the most popular format in UU right now, but like it's like the favor goes to more like bulky builds, which is why stuff like Lucario and Absol really haven't been as relevant. But if I did have to build like a hyper offensive team, something like this would probably be what I built. So yeah, if you learned something about team building today or team rating, then definitely leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for listening to me.